but it still wasn't enough to counteract the other forces that were being thrown at me on a daily basis. It wasn't even until I turned like 18 or 19 until I realized that, my skin isn't like weird or ugly or different or anything like that. Like I just am who I am. So I believe that a good strategy to counteract that is people like us, filmmakers, content creators, anybody in the media. Like it is up to us to, take the first step to share our stories. So maybe like somebody that was feeling the way that I was feeling would be able to see it and, reach a hand out and grab them, help them up, and let them know that they're not alone, that they're not the only one going through these difficult times, and having low self-esteem. Like it's unfortunate, it's very common, and I feel like it's up to all of us to, encircle each other, wrap each other up, and make us feel whole.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you, Bobby. Welcome, Amanda. It's so good to have you with us.
Hi.
What do you think about this question?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and I totally relate to what Bobby just said. I think representation in the media is super important, and I also think it's really important at a young age because I think, those really critical years when you're like maybe like 3 to 6 and you're kind of developing your sense of identity. And like growing up, I only really had like white dolls. Like even if I could choose it, like I would actually want a white one because like that's what I thought was normal, which is so terrible. So I think like getting a lot more representation in children's media is super important. And I think there's like been so much progress with that lately, especially in like animation, even with like Doc McStuffins, and then Hair Love winning the Oscar last year was just really amazing to see. And I think it's like so impactful on those young kids. And I really hope it like really does boost their self-esteem from a young age and know that they have like nothing to be ashamed of because of the color of their skin.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't have said that any better. So powerful. Yarland, I want to turn to you and kind of on a little bit of a spin on this, all of us as girls, Black girls, especially they grow up to be Black women. And what do you see be the impact on Black women who have endured these biases all their lives?
Yeah. These are great questions, and I want to thank the filmmakers for their work in illuminating this issue. And I have a few responses. The first thing, and I think that we saw it, it's important to remember that implicit bias and colorism, it's Black people are impacted by it as well. And here's what I mean by that. Sometimes we might think that only the majority or white society might be guilty of colorism and having preferences, but we know that that's not true, right? We know that that can happen within Black communities. And so what that means, I think, is that we have to be so incredibly intentional and proactive about talking about colorism and building up the confidence of young Black girls. We cannot wait for a young girl to become a teenager and there to be an incident before we start to talk about it. We have to just, when they are very little, compliment her on the color of her skin and tell her simply how beautiful she is. I also think that what the filmmaker said related to media representation is true. But I also think that there's something that we can do. For example, many of us find ourselves in, like, I can think about my own self. I find myself in positions of having to select images for websites or recommend things for clients. And even when I am using stock photos, I am intentional about finding brown and dark skinned women. And so we don't have to wait for the media to feed us these images. We can find ways to do it ourselves. But to answer your question in terms of how it impacts women, I think it's different, right? I think that some women find themselves really struggling with it. And some women have said, I struggled with it, but I choose not to be who you have defined me to be. And that, I think, is the message that we have to have as Black women across the world, reminding ourselves and reminding each other of our greatness and of our beauty, and not waiting for anyone else to do it.
Wow, no doubt. I mean, just so beautifully said. I am so glad this is being recorded, by the way, because more people need to hear this message. Okay, Nakenya, thank you, Yarlin. Nakenya, I want to hear from you because the work that you do with Black Mamas is, as I said, so poignant, so personal for you, and for many in the community. But talk a little bit about your thoughts around how does bias impact Black girls' self-image, self-esteem, and what are the healthier kinds of cultural messages that we can be sending? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I am the mom of two Black girls, one that's 2 and one that will be 18 in November. And, I've kind of run the gamut with my 18-year-old of going from wanting natural hair to straight hair and, having being super conscious of her skin. And I think, for me as a mom, I'll speak from that lens. I was very intentional about pouring into my daughter and lifting her up and elevating her. We are spiritual. And so telling her that she is exactly how God made her to be and that she is perfect, without flaw. But I think that we can't be naive, um, in that there's still psychological effects. My daughter went to a predominantly white school. She's brown skin, a darker complexion than I. And in middle school, when they're really kind of like solidifying their identity and in their adolescence, she struggled with anxiety and depression that I think was in large part due to her self-esteem because she was not seeing other girls who looked like her, right? She developed earlier, she had more curves, and she was the only melanated face within the classrooms. And so I was always trying to find ways to reinforce positive images. In our house, we buy greeting cards that have Black people on them. We buy Black dolls. But I would say to our allies and to those who want to help to improve this, I guess, experience for everyone, if you have a little white girl or a Latina daughter, buy Black dolls for them too.
Yes.
And I'll stop here, but I'll say I was talking to someone recently about imagine if you were of the majority, you were a white person, and every time you went into a store, every doll, every poster was Black. You would feel so weird.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that is the reality for Black people. And so when you get to the root cause of why looking at colorism and bias, it comes from anti-Blackness. It's a larger scale issue where Black get back, white you all right. That's a saying. I'm probably dating myself. Brown stick around. Jarlin may know what I'm talking about. But even just the connotations of the word Black, darkness and evil, and there's just so much there that is at the subconscious level, that it's unconscious bias.
Yeah.
That we need to work on, that will then trickle into colorism. Yeah. And colorism, we're talking about Black folks, but it's in every part of the world, from our sisters that are Indian to our Latinx sisters. Anywhere in the world that you go, there's colorism that affects our women and girls.
No doubt. Wow. So spot on. Thank you. Who is in your lap?
This is Miracle.
Oh,
I have the privilege of helping to care for her right now. So
she is beyond beautiful. Wow. Thank you for having her here. Here's a question for you all. Another one, sort of, I find myself pinching myself in this moment that we're in. because my hope, my prayer, my deep desire is that this is not just a passing thing we're experiencing, right? And I guess I want to ask each of you, and let's start this time with Amanda. What do you think about this moment in time that we're seeing of I call it an awakening. And I hope that it's one that lasts forever, where change really does happen and is sustainable. And little babies like Miracle that Nekenya is holding will have a very different experience than Nekenya had, or you had, Amanda. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm 20 years old, so I guess I haven't been on this earth for too long. But it's definitely really inspiring to see. I think the first time that even though all this change is happening, I felt like I kind of had a deja vu moment back to like 2014 with like everything with Ferguson, because I thought that was huge, and that really, really struck me at the time, especially as someone who was living in a predominantly white community, and I actually like didn't think anything of the police because I was kind of sheltered from it because, you know, so much police is concentrated in inner city and predominantly Black areas. So I never really thought much of that stuff. And at 2014 with Michael Brown, that was like insane to me. And like, I kind of just remember having like an anxiety attack in my living room and just like kind of rethinking my whole identity. So that was the shifting point for me. And I didn't realize it wasn't like that for everyone. It wasn't like that for most people because now suddenly this is the shifting point for a lot of people. And I would say probably many non-Black people. So it's definitely so different now to see that like that was my shifting point. And then I'm seeing like all these people who I know who are not Black, and like suddenly they're posting about all this type of stuff. They're trying to educate themselves. So it's extremely inspiring and empowering. And I'm just hoping that like this really can be it, that there doesn't have to be like another tragedy for it to keep on moving forward and moving on at this point.
Thank you so much, Amanda. I'm with you on that. Bobby, what do you think?
Yeah, so I feel like Amanda and I have pretty similar experiences. When I was younger and for most of my life, I lived in predominantly white suburban neighborhoods. So like the police presence wasn't very prominent like in my daily life. I mean, growing up, I did get, you know, the talk that most Black children get about how to act around police officers, you know, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, you know, smile, be nice, and all of that. But it wasn't until I went to college, I went to undergraduate at Kent State University. It wasn't until my freshman year when I got my first Black friend, and she was from like a predominantly Black neighborhood, that I realized that our life experiences were completely different. And then I ended up in the Pan-African Studies department. And that's when I had like my awakening. And I realized that, oh, you know, maybe I shouldn't let people call me an Oreo, even if it's a joke, you know, like maybe I shouldn't let people say, oh, like I'm Blacker than you are and stuff like that. Like, that's not okay. So you know, there's a lot of stages that happen, you know, there's like general shock and then anger and sadness and grief. And then you're mourning the life that you thought you had. But now I see a lot of non-Black people going through that same thing. And people are DMing me on Instagram like, hey, Bobby, like, what can I do to help out? Like, I want to donate, I want to support, but I don't know where to start. And so, you know, I give them resources. I'm like, hey, you can start here, read this book, do all of that. So, I mean, it is inspiring. It is encouraging. Hopefully there's not another tragedy that sparks another wave like this. However, I feel like there might be, even though I really hope that there won't. My professor, he always said, like, I dreamed of you before you even existed. So that's what I keep with me moving forward. Like, everything that I do it for the next generation. Like, I'm dreaming of them to have a better place in life than I do.
Oh my God. Wow. That's so moving, and amen to all that. Nekenya, what are your thoughts about this moment we're in and where we're headed?
Uh, you know, I'm nowhere near 20. When I was 20, um, Amanda and Bobby, I was attending the University of Texas, raising holy hell. So I've been involved in social justice work for a long while now, a couple of decades. And so I think that, you know, for me, this is nothing new. I remember being a freshman on UT's campus and um, getting up one morning to go to class, and there were white supremacist signs all over campus that said that Black men were the carrier of AIDS and they raped white women. And as a student leader, we took that to the president, and he said, well, it's free speech. So, you know, the hell raising began. And I've been fighting ever since. And so I think that, you know, regardless of your age, your stage in life, like right now, it is a time that we can all look around and see what our place is and step into our place, step into the gap to say, no, we're not. It's really a human rights issue. It's not an issue that is only to be taken up by Black folk. It's a human rights issue, and we have to see ourselves as human. But that does not mean that we do not see the diversity and the beauty in our ethnicity and our nationality, but that we value each other all the same. So for me, right now, I can honestly say that I'm just like, I'm over it. I'm like, you know, let's stop talking about it and let's be about it.
Yeah.
And you know, that means that folks in positions of privilege and power and resource need to give some stuff up.
Right.
To center Black people. And that it has to go beyond what you're comfortable with, but it means that you're gonna have to feel some sacrifice and feel the pinch.
Yeah. Yeah. It has to feel as important to those who are not Black as it does to those who are. I mean, from a humanity perspective. And I don't know, I think I've seen some people be that way, but and that's refreshing because in my tenure of life thus far, I haven't seen that. And I've lived on 2 continents. One is my continent of origin, which is Africa, and then the rest of my life here thus far. But yeah, Yarland, I'm going to let you close this one. I want to hear what you think. Thank you, Nakenya.
I really appreciate listening to the perspectives of the other panelists, and I'm probably more closely aligned with Nakenya on this. And I was thinking about, you know, is there a generational thing? I don't know, and I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters because what I think is important is for these different perspectives on this moment to be aired and to get out. I actually am concerned about the narrative that this time it's different, this moment is different. Because on one hand, I think in some ways it's disrespectful to those who have come so far before us, right? Whether that is Nat Turner, whether that is Harriet Tubman, whether that is Martin Luther King. So I think this is a continuation. I have a struggle. I struggle with thinking that, no, this is the moment because it negates everything that has gotten us here. Yeah. The other thing I think is, it's kind of like being on a diet or exercising. You know, you do it and then you forget, and then you're like, oh gosh, I found this new thing. But if we start to understand humanity, and that's the word that I use in my work at Harriet Speaks, our humanity as a muscle, you have to continue to do the work to develop it. So just as we were not post-racial when Obama was elected, we are not going to be post-racial post the murder of George Floyd. There will be other instances, but what I hope that we do is we don't start at the starting line again and spend all this time complimenting ourselves that we are finally here. The other thing that I think is a problem is so many of us are seeing this moment as being one of being true and valid because white folks are taking part. So for me, whether white folks are in it or not is not a litmus test on how I go about doing my work. They can put a square on Instagram if they want to. I really don't care. I know what it is that I need to be doing, and I hope that that's the point where we get to.
Telling it like it is. I hope all 45 of us who are still on this live experience have heard that loud and clear. Our humanity is a muscle to be worked. Coming to you from Miss Daniels. Thank you.